Under the golden lights of a grand ballroom, a woman stood frozen as her sister called her worthless before a room full of applause. No one knew that behind her calm eyes, a storm had already begun. She had built their family business from the ground up brick by line of code only to watch it stolen in a single, merciless speech. But that night, as betrayal echoed like glass breaking, she made a silent promise. Tomorrow, everything will change. The night my sister took the stage and called me worthless, the microphone trembled in her hand like a glass about to crack. The room held its breath. Somewhere behind the applause, I heard the soft click of a camera, the way a moment becomes evidence. I did not know it yet, but everything that happened in that ballroom began years earlier, in a narrow shop on a sun-faded street in Austin, Texas. Mitchell Tech Repairs smelled of solder and dust. The sign over the door had lost a letter and the summer heat leaked in through the window frames. My father, Richard Mitchell, kept the lights low to save on the electric bill. He called the gloom good for concentration. I called it honest. You do not lie to yourself in a room like that. I was 28, a software engineer who had learned to quiet the urge to explain herself. My days were split between the workbench and a second-hand laptop at the back table. I lived with my father above the shop in a 2-room apartment that let you hear the rain before you saw it. At night, I wrote code until the screen washed my hands in blue. During the day, I fixed the same cracked hinges and frightened hard drives people carried in like injured birds. My sister, Olivia Mitchell, lived in New York. Harvard polishes its graduates, and the city does the rest. On television, she spoke about transformation and modern leadership, her voice even and luminous. My father kept a stack of magazines that mentioned her. He read them the way people read old letters from those they love. He did not mean to compare us. He only did not know how not to. Olivia was invited to another panel, he said one morning, holding his phone so I could see the headline. They want her to talk about the future of work. I tightened a screw on a desktop case and made myself smile. She is good at that, I said. Talking about the future. He cleared his throat. You're good at making things, he added quickly, like a kindness that arrives late but still tries to be a kindness. Different gifts, different worth. The sentences we do not finish become the walls we live inside. The shop was failing in a way slow enough to feel polite. Rent, licenses, parts, the silent march of subscriptions that renew while you sleep. On a Tuesday that felt like every Tuesday, I watched a florist across the street count vases and argue with a clipboard. She miscounted, sighed, and erased. I stared at her shelves, at the stickers curling from plastic bins, and saw a pattern that could be fixed. That night, I sketched a simple system for inventory. A small software spine that could hold the weight of a small business without breaking the bank or the owner's patience. No dashboards that screamed. No features that bragged. Just clean fields, a search that understood how people forget, and a calendar that learned the rhythm of deliveries. I wrote until the cicadas softened and the city grew quiet. The code tightened the way a thread finds its knot. When I showed my father a prototype, he squinted as if I had turned on another light. He did not trust screens. He trusted the register's drawer when it closed with a final sound. It looks simple, he said. Simple is good if simple works. We tested it in the shop. It remembered parts we used to forget to reorder. It printed labels that did not smear. It matched our mess and then made it smaller. I took a deep breath and visited the florist. She said yes. A hardware store said yes. A bakery said, if it stops my midnight mistake with eggs, I will bless your children. By the end of the month, we had our first paid licenses. The receipt printed with a sound that felt like an answer. My father looked at the number and then at me. His eyes softened. I am proud of you, kiddo, he said, and his voice had the weight of a hand placed gently on a shoulder. I kept that sentence the way people keep lucky coins. I touched it when fear came near. I told myself it would last. I thought that moment meant everything until I learned pride can fade faster than morning dew. An investor visited the shop on a bright afternoon, carrying a smile that asked for the check before the meal arrived. He walked among the workbenches as if they were exhibits. You have loyal customers, he said, tapping a cracked keyboard as if it might confess. But this is old-fashioned. No modern vision. No scale. You need a face for the story, a name that opens doors. He paused and let the point find its target. Your sister knows how to do that. He left a business card and the scent of cologne that did not belong in our air. My father stood at the window and watched him go. He wore the expression of a man who sees weather gathering and cannot decide if it will bless the field or take the roof. That evening, after we closed, my father sat at the small kitchen table with a plate of reheated stew and turned on the television. Olivia appeared on a talk show titled Next Gen Leadership. The studio lights made her eyes look like polished stones. She spoke about courage, about the necessity of change, about stepping aside when new talent emerges. The audience clapped. The host called her a visionary. My father did not finish his stew. He turned down the volume but did not turn off the screen. In the dim reflection on the glass, I saw the two of us, a man aging faster than his plans, and a daughter who was both evidence and doubt. He sighed. It was a small sound, but it made the room feel different. Pride, yes. Also fear. The fear that every founder meets when the scaffolding of a dream begins to creak. The next morning, I arrived early and opened the shop. The sun lifted itself over the east wall and laid light in a thin bar across the floor. I set the laptop on the counter and pulled up the documents I had been building in the quiet hours, incorporation papers, a name that could hold a future, a ledger that spoke a language banks understand. I had shown these to my father in pieces. Today I put them together. Mitchell Systems, I said, when he came down the stairs and rubbed sleep from his eyes. Repairs kept us alive. Systems will let us grow. We can keep the soul of this place and give it a better engine. He read the papers the way men read maps when they are not ready to admit they are lost. He looked at me, then at the shop, then back at me again. A slow nod climbed into his face. If we do this, he said, we do it right. We do not become something we are not. We become a clearer version of what we already are, I said. He signed his name with careful strokes, each letter a small promise. I signed mine and felt the pen press through the page. The new entity accepted us without ceremony. There was no chorus, just the soft confirmation tone and the feeling that a door had opened in a wall I had mistaken for the edge of the world. We stood in the middle of the shop and let the silence be a witness. In my mind, a logo formed, simple and clean, the kind of mark that does not shout because it knows where it belongs. It was the start of something big and the beginning of something I could not yet see coming. 5 years taught our small company how to breathe with a larger chest. Mitchell Systems moved from the dim shop on a sun-faded street to a modest floor in a brick building near the river. The office windows held the sky like open hands. Our revenue crossed $5 million, not with a trumpet blast, but with the steady music of renewals and referrals. I led a quiet team of engineers who believed that elegance is a form of mercy. They wrote code that did not shout. They solved problems before those problems learned the language to announce themselves. My father walked the corridor most mornings, greeting people by name. He had a way of touching the back of a chair and making the person in it feel seen. When visitors came, he would rest his hand on my shoulder and say with a soft pride that belonged to both of us, Lauren built the spine. The word spine carried history in its syllables. It was our way of saying this company stands. In another city, in another life, my sister watched us from a distance. New York can shine so hard it becomes a mirror that shows you what you are not. Olivia advised a startup that burned through its promises faster than it burned through cash. The board collapsed. The investors stepped back. The founder stopped answering his phone. The apartment grew quiet except for the hum of a refrigerator that did not care about futures. Student loans did not blink. Silence learned the shape of her rooms. On a winter night, a news segment played on her laptop. A local business profile. A simple shot of our new office. A few sentences about small software helping small companies. The camera caught my face in a reflection on glass. I was not smiling. I was thinking, which is how I smile when the camera is not there. Olivia paused the video and studied the still frame the way a person studies an old photograph for evidence of something they missed the first time. Her thumb rested on the space bar. She did not press it. The light from the screen held her like a question. She wrote to my father in the spring. The message was warm, threaded with a humility that did not feel false. She had learned that collapse is a teacher who does not bargain. "I want to come home," she said when she called, her voice careful, as if a wrong word might break the bridge as she crossed it. "I want to help take Mitchell Systems national." My father did not hide his joy. He moved through the office with a lifted step, as if the floor had grown kinder overnight. He spoke of expansion and partnerships and the grace of second chances. He also spoke, in smaller tones, about speed and image and the way investors think. I knew the echoes in his mind. The investor in the shop. The talk show in the kitchen. The line about stepping aside. Fear and love had joined hands inside him, and it was hard to tell them apart. Olivia arrived in Austin on a bright day that smelled like rain before rain. She hugged me with the long pressure of a person who wants to believe in bridges. Her eyes were softer than I remembered, but they still held that flicker a camera loves. We walked the office together. She ran her fingers along the edge of a conference table as if testing its promise. "It is beautiful," she said. "It is small, but it is beautiful." It was the kind of sentence that is both a compliment and a diagnosis. In the meeting that followed, my father made his choice sound like a prayer and a plan. He spoke about scale and storytelling. He spoke about rooms that we were not yet in and about doors that asked for a certain name when you knocked. He asked me if I could accept Olivia as co-chief executive officer. He did not say he was afraid of becoming old-fashioned, but his eyes said it. I heard the soft creak of the scaffolding around his dream. I agreed. I told myself that love can be infrastructure. I told myself that the spine is strong enough to carry two heads. The first months were a harmony that never quite found its tune. I spent my days with product, with the blue light of dashboards that measured health without hysteria. Olivia moved through a different sky. She reworked the brand palette. She tightened the language on the website until it sounded like a speech ready for a stage. She booked interviews and built a pipeline of panels. A photographer captured her against a wall of light and called it leadership. She was good at this world. She was fluent in its grammar. My father began to quote her. "We should think about our story arc," he said one afternoon, tapping a page that showed a funnel like a polished horn. "Investors want a narrative." He said narrative like it was a machine we could assemble. Olivia secured a meeting with a fund that wore its certainty like a tailored suit. The partners shook hands as if conclusions were already in motion. He praised our product market fit, which is the kind of phrase that glows when said in the right room. He praised Olivia's presence. He praised her clarity. He praised the way she made our charts look inevitable. When the meeting ended, my father turned to me in the hall. His voice was kind, but it carried a refrain that did not belong to him. "Investors do not buy code, Lauren," he said. "They buy confidence." For a moment, I could not find my breath. I looked through the glass at my team, hunched and bright, their fingers translating problems into patience. I thought about all the things that do not look like confidence when they are doing their quiet work. A spine does not glow. It holds. Olivia's calendar filled with stages. A magazine ran a profile titled "The Face of Small Business Tech." The photographer framed her with light and framed our story around her. There was a sentence about the innovative engine built by her team. I read the line twice. It was true and not true in equal measure. Tension does not always announce itself. Sometimes it seeps. Meetings shifted by degrees. Olivia spoke first and then longest. She had an instinct for the camera even when no lens was present. She would set a goal, then a narrative, and then a deadline that made the room lean forward to keep up. I adjusted roadmaps in the night. I slept in phrases. One evening, I returned to the office for a notebook I had left on a windowsill. The building had settled into the sound it keeps for after hours, the mechanical exhale of things that work. As I turned the corner near the glass conference room, I heard my name. I stopped, not because I wanted to eavesdrop, but because certain syllables do not release you until you hear what they intend. Olivia stood at the far end of the room with a potential partner. She looked tired in the honest way of a person whose face has stopped performing. Her voice was lower than it is on stages. "She is brilliant," she said, and there was no theater in those words. "But she will never scale beyond small-town thinking." The sentence moved through me like a cold wind that does not need a door. I felt my face grow still. I placed my hand on the glass to steady myself and left a print that looked like a smudged star. I did not enter. I did not speak. I walked to the elevator and watched the numbers descend as if they were counting down to something I could not yet name. That was the night I realized that sometimes your family's love has a price tag. The ballroom glittered like a promise too bright to believe. Chandeliers floated above the guests like captured constellations, each crystal trembling with reflected light. Waiters moved in quiet precision, carrying trays of champagne that hummed with expectation. On every table stood a centerpiece of white lilies, Olivia's choice, not mine. The scent was sharp, elegant, and faintly suffocating. The celebration was for our father's 60th birthday. Olivia had spared no expense. The invitation list read like a financial magazine's dream: investors, executives, venture partners, and a handful of family friends who suddenly remembered our names after years of silence. The event had been planned to look like affection, but felt more like an exhibition. I arrived early, hours before the guests. The ballroom was still half-lit, half-dream. Technicians adjusted spotlights while a pianist rehearsed fragments of something graceful. I placed the small wrapped box on the table near the stage, exactly where my father would sit. Inside was the gift I had prepared, an album of photographs tracing our company's journey from the dusty repair shop in Austin to the polished offices of Mitchell Systems. Each page carried fingerprints of the years we had built together. Olivia swept into the hall later, her gown the color of evening rain. Cameras followed her the way sunflowers follow the sun. She smiled at the decorators, at the caterers, at everyone except me. "It needs to feel grand," she said to the event manager. "We are not just celebrating a man. We are celebrating a legacy." Her words caught me. A legacy. My father's, yes, but also mine. Yet when she said it, the word felt as if it had no room for me. As the guests arrived, the air thickened with perfume and conversation. I stood near the edge of the room, watching the swirl of silks and laughter. My father wore a navy suit I had not seen before. His tie matched Olivia's dress, a quiet coordination that said more than they intended. He looked younger under the lights, proud and unaware that pride can be a fragile currency. Olivia worked the room like a conductor guiding an orchestra. She introduced investors to journalists, journalists to clients, clients to opportunity. Each handshake built her image higher, brick by brick, while I remained at the foundation unseen, holding the weight. A waiter paused beside me. "You are Miss Mitchell, right? The technical one." I nodded. The technical one. I wondered if anyone would ever remember my name without a modifier attached. From the stage, a slideshow began. Images of my father through the decades, the shop, the first office, the ribbon cutting at the new headquarters. Each photo flickered with my fingerprints, though my face was often cropped at the edge of the frame. The audience applauded. My father smiled. Olivia stood beside him, radiant in the glow of a story she was already rewriting. The pianist softened the music. Glasses clinked. Olivia stepped toward the microphone. The hum of the crowd fell into expectation. She began with grace. "Tonight we celebrate our father, the heart of Mitchell Systems. His dedication built a family, a company, and a dream that continues to grow." Applause rose again, sincere and harmless. But then she paused, a practiced pause, perfectly timed for attention. As we look to the future, she continued, her tone shifting, "We must also recognize the importance of evolution. The board of directors has been in discussion for some time about how to best prepare for the company's next chapter." A faint buzz rippled through the room. I felt my pulse quicken. I had not been invited to any recent board meetings. Olivia smiled, a smile polished by television lights. "It gives me great honor to announce that Mitchell Systems will move forward under unified leadership. Effective immediately, I will be serving as the sole chief executive officer." The room erupted in applause before understanding caught up to shock. Conversation stumbled mid-sentence. I stared at her, the words still hanging in the air like ash. Unified leadership. Sole chief executive officer. I waited for my father to correct her, to stand, to laugh, to remind everyone that I had built this company from the inside out. Instead, he nodded. He smiled the same proud smile he had worn when the investor once called our shop old-fashioned. Olivia turned toward me. Her eyes softened, her voice sharpened. My sister, Lauren, has been invaluable in maintaining our technical foundation. Her work has kept our systems stable, and for that, we are grateful. Grateful. The words struck like ice. She continued, her voice light but firm. However, the world has changed. Leadership now demands not just stability but vision. And while Lauren's dedication has been admirable, her perspective belongs to a smaller era of business. It is time to embrace the future. The crowd murmured. Some avoided my gaze, others watched, waiting for drama. My father lifted his glass as if to toast. The pianist began playing again, too quickly, too loudly. Inside, something cracked. Not a scream, not a collapse, just the clean fracture of belief. I thought of the nights at the workbench, the glow of a monitor reflected in my father's weary eyes, the sound of his voice when he first said he was proud of me. The memory pressed against my ribs like a blade turned backward. I stood. The chair scraped against the marble floor, a small, sudden sound that cut through the chatter. Dozens of faces turned toward me. I did not speak. Words were too small to carry what I felt. I walked to the table where my father sat. His smile faltered, but he did not move. I placed the wrapped box before him. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said softly. My voice did not tremble. It did not need to. It carried the stillness that comes after a storm realizes it can choose where to land. Then I turned and walked toward the doors. The murmurs followed, but no one tried to stop me. The chandeliers shimmered behind me, still pretending to be stars. Outside, the night air was cool, almost kind. I stood beneath the hotel's golden awning and looked up at the sky that held no judgment. The city stretched around me, alive with lights that did not care who ruled which floor. I breathed once deeply, as if drawing a new blueprint inside my chest. They thought they had buried me that night, but they did not realize I was the one holding the shovel. At 3 a.m, the city spoke in a quieter tongue. Streetlights held their patient circles on empty asphalt, and my office glowed like a small lantern set against a field. I sat before the laptop and let the screen become a stage for memory and law. Flash. A scanned agreement. My father's signature beside mine. The transfer of 26% of the common shares executed 3 years earlier. The right of first refusal satisfied. The conflicts of interest disclosure initialed and filed. The lines of ink looked like a river that had chosen a direction long ago. Flash. Articles of incorporation for Innovexa Labs, my separate company. A brief, precise paragraph. All intellectual property pertaining to the core inventory platform, including but not limited to source code, architecture, and encryption protocols, is the exclusive property of Innovexa Labs. Attached, server diagrams that showed the license key system residing entirely on Innovexa infrastructure. The arrows were simple. The meaning was not. Flash. An email from internal counsel, subject, contract term demands. The message summarized the key person clause embedded in our largest client agreements. If Lauren Mitchell exits leadership or is materially removed from decision-making authority, the client may terminate without penalty. Counsel had written, clause is enforceable. Recommendation, prepare continuity plan or leadership assurance. The text sat on the screen like a bell that had already been rung. I leaned back, and in the quiet, I heard my own breathing return to a steady rhythm. They built the image, I said to the room that remembered everything. I built the infrastructure. At 8:45, the lobby filled with the sound of shoes that expected applause. At 9 exactly, the glass doors slid open and my sister entered with our father at her side. Olivia's confidence moved ahead of her like a herald. My father looked rested and unburdened, as if a decision had cleared weather from his mind. They found me in the conference room. The blinds were half open. Sunlight drew pale ladders across the table. I did not stand. I wanted the chairs and the documents to mark the shape of the meeting. Lauren, Olivia said, and her voice reached for the register one uses with a colleague who must receive disappointing news. I am glad you came in. We have a lot to realign. I pressed a key. The wall display woke with a soft bloom. The scanned share transfer appeared, then magnified until the signatures sat like anchors in a bright sea. I own 51% of Mitchell Systems, I said. It is not an opinion. It is a matter of record, filed and compliant. The right of first refusal was satisfied. The conflicts of interest were disclosed and approved. You announced unified leadership. I am here to clarify what the word unified cannot mean. Silence gathered as if it had paid for a seat. My father's eyes searched the page as though an alternative clause might appear if he loved it enough. Olivia did not blink. She was trained to hold a smile through shutter clicks. Ownership is not the same as leadership, she replied. We have Series B investors ready to buy us out next week. They want a single face and a single path. They want me. Then they will want this, I said, and advanced to the next slide. A diagram of the license key servers filled the glass. Innovexa Labs at the core. Arrows of dependency fanned outward, precise and unambiguous. In the lower corner, a countdown clock ran without drama. 00:00:18. 00:00:17. The licensing agreement between Innovexa and Mitchell Systems expires this morning, I said. Renewal requires my signature. I withheld it. The servers will go dark in 12 seconds. Olivia laughed, a short sound that did not find a place to land. You would not sabotage your own house. I am not harming the house, I answered. I am closing the door that was left open. Control is not a speech. It is a set of keys. The clock reached midnight. It held for a breath, then dissolved. Our chief technology officer, who had been waiting by the door with a tablet in hand, stepped forward. His voice was calm, almost gentle. The key servers just went offline. New activations are paused. Current clients will run for the grace period, but renewals will require a fresh license. Olivia's phone lit up with incoming calls as if the device itself had become anxious. She turned away to answer one, then another. We can still renegotiate, she said into the air. We have a term sheet. We have momentum. Words of motion. Words that hoped to outrun the structure beneath them. I pressed the final key. The screen shifted to a grid of emails. Subject lines from our largest customers regarding leadership change, activation of key person clause, notice of termination without penalty. The timestamps were cold, impeccable, and recent. Most of our clients signed because of my work, I said. Because of my promise to them that we would build systems that did not fail. Last night, I notified them of my removal. This morning, many of them exercised their rights under the key person clause. They are willing to return under a leadership arrangement that includes me or under a new contract with Innovexa. They are not willing to be reassured by photographs. My father sank into a chair as if the force that kept him upright had been quietly rescinded. He put a hand to his forehead and rubbed the place where his thoughts had been leaning. When he spoke, his voice belonged to the man who once stood in a dim shop and chose faith over fear. What have we done? He asked, not to me and not to Olivia, but to the air that had carried us here. There are moments when the path ahead does not fork. It simply narrows until only truth can pass. I slid a single page across the table. It contained two options, written without rhetoric. Option 1, I said. I walk away with my shares, with the Innovexa licenses, and with the team members who joined because of the work we do together. Mitchell Systems becomes a nameplate and a lease. Option 2. You both resign your operating roles. You remain shareholders, silent and compensated. I assume full executive control. We renew the license, restore the clients, and rebuild the trust that has been squandered. The door opened and counsel stepped in, invited earlier and now exactly on time. She reviewed the page, then nodded once. Both pathways are lawful. The second is faster and preserves value. My recommendation is option 2. Olivia stared at the document as if it might rearrange its letters out of pity. For a moment I saw the wound behind her certainty, the winter apartment in New York, the failed startup, the loans that did not sleep. She looked at me, not as a rival, but as a sister who had lost the shape of a bridge and wanted it back. If we agree, she said, will you humiliate us the way we humiliated you? I thought of the ballroom, the lilies, the way applause can sound like rain on a roof that is already leaking. No, I said. Revenge is a fire that eats the house from the inside. This is not destruction. This is reclamation. They signed. Council countersigned. The CTO exhaled. The room seemed to rise by a fraction, as if relieved to be aligned with gravity again. I walked to the roof and let the wind unbraid what remained of the night. The city moved beneath me in patient lines. My mother found me there. She stood at my side for a while, saying nothing. Then she asked the question that mothers ask when victory looks too much like loss. Was it worth it? Maybe revenge is not about breaking what hurt you, I said. Maybe it is about taking back what you built and choosing how to carry it. A year later, the office had a new address and a taller horizon. The work felt clean again. Our clients returned, not because I demanded it, but because reliability is a promise that remembers your name. On a quiet afternoon, I hung a framed photograph on the wall across from my desk. It was the first image from the first chapter. The narrow repair shop in Austin, the crooked sign, the door that stuck in the summer. In the glass, I saw my reflection layered over the old storefront. Past and present shared a pane, each making the other legible. I stepped back and let the silence do its steady work. Legacy reclaimed, I said, not loudly, not softly. Sometimes, peace is the loudest victory. There are moments in life when victory does not sound like applause. It sounds like silence, the kind that follows after you have faced every storm, and the wind finally lowers its voice. Lauren Mitchell's story began in the dim light of a repair shop and ended in the reflection of a glass office, where past and present finally shook hands. She built a company, lost it to the people she loved, and reclaimed it not through fury, but through understanding. What began as betrayal became revelation. That power earned through patience will always outlast power seized through pride. In the end, she learned that revenge, when stripped of anger, reveals something pure reclamation. To reclaim your work, to reclaim your worth, to reclaim your peace. Each of us, in some quiet way, has stood where Lauren stood, overlooked, underestimated, or replaced. Perhaps you have known the ache of being called less than, even by those you tried to lift. And maybe you, too, have looked at the ruins of something you built and asked if it was still worth rebuilding. This story answers that question. It says yes. Yes, because integrity is a foundation that does not crack when the lights go out. Yes, because self-respect is not something you can lose, it is something you must remember. And yes, because sometimes the greatest triumph is not to win louder, but to rise wiser. Lauren's victory was not in defeating her sister, nor in outsmarting her father's blind trust. It was in choosing to stop the fire when she could have fed it. She understood that legacy is not what others hand you, it is what you build, what you protect, and what you choose to leave standing after the echoes fade. If this story has found a quiet place inside you, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what am I building? And when the world tells you that you are too small, too quiet, too late, remember her. The quiet ones are the ones who endure, the ones who rebuild, the ones who rise. Thank you for watching this story until the end. If it spoke to something inside you, if it reminded you of your own strength, or of the peace that follows courage, share what you felt in the comments. I would love to hear your story too. And if you wish to travel through more stories like this one, stories about resilience, dignity, and the unspoken power of the underestimated, stay with us. Subscribe, join the conversation, and together, let us keep telling the stories that remind us who we are and what we are capable of becoming.